I've often thought that what's going on, especially in the States and to an extent maybe the UK too, that and here in Canada too, that this whole thing that's going on now, this Illuminati or whatever one wants to call it, they're in their death throes. That's my belief. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's just they're doing their thing?
No, I very much believe that. You see, I believe that the kind of evil that we have got in our world is a fairly recent historical phenomenon. Because our own lives are so short, we kind of think, this is an eternal problem. Mm-hmm. It's not. And evil has an agenda. And it's rooted in our unconscious, but say for a moment we just want to keep it sort of political and not observe the psychological aspect for a moment. In my work, I talk about the origins of the kind of people who rule from behind the throne. And I very much talk about the end date of 2012. And we're actually in a countdown situation to that now, from the beginning of 2007. And so it's interesting that we're doing this talk right now, because 2007's opening is a very, very important date,
yep,
astrologically and astronomically, to the countdown. And it's going to be a twofold type of thing. As these darker forces start to have to deal with who they are and come to their denouement, the human race will have a greater opportunity to find out all the things that have been hidden from it. So it's both constructive and destructive. There is going to be a greater chance to find out, if people have the curiosity and people have the interest, this is the time where they're going to have some of the big questions answered for them. And it's going to happen easily, and it's going to happen naturally. If people can apply their mind to it, they're going to have incredible revelations that centuries after centuries after centuries of human people did not have and could never have had, these revelations that are about to come now. We're living in what the Maya priests called the time of apocalypse, which just means unveiling, revealing.
A new beginning.
A new beginning.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is that the word apocalypse meant a lid or a covering, a leather covering, and it really refers to the human persona. It really refers to the human mask. And when these masks are starting to come down, individuals are going to start showing who they really are. This is going to happen from the level of ordinary relationships all the way up to the government, all the way up to the corridors of power. And individuals don't want the mask to slip. It's not that they're willingly doing this. It's going to be forces of a kind of energy, a light, that's coming in to expose this kind of thing. It's kind of a dark light. It's governed by the planet Pluto and by Scorpionic and Aquarian Uranian power, if you get into the astrological jargon of it. It's also psychologically it's to do with the shadow personality and the projections that people have. So individuals are not wanting their masks to slip. In fact, they're benefiting from having those masks. They can get away with murder. But there's some force that's going to come and try to take away those masks. And that is going to be a massive exposure for a lot of people. It will also expose all the corruption that is on the governmental level, as you were talking about. And so those forces are going to have to deal with it. And because of the unveiling of this kind of disease, there is a good chance then that the human race can rid itself of this type of life that we've created, type of leaders or misleaders, and we can start again afresh from 2012. Given what the prophets are saying about 2012, and given the way that it was expressed, it looks like that it really will be a major change, a major leveling. It's not going to be just a little phase shift at that particular date. It could be a very, very radical, massive worldwide change. And if the dark forces have their way, you see the trouble with evil, and you people have seen this in Star Wars and in Star Trek, is that a being can get so evil that they'd rather go down and take everybody with them if they knew they had to expire themselves.
Yeah, that's the scary part.
Right, and they may not even be in control of that kind of instinct, because it is an instinct. It's a death instinct. I mean, for years and years and years, people thought that, people had their hand on the button and could just press it and the nuclear war would begin. Well, it's along those lines. If you're so psychopathic and so megalomaniac, my mind goes to the Star Trek 3 movie, or I think it was Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan or whatever,
mm-hmm.
where this kind of creature wants to blow up the whole universe just because he's got to die. They say, hey, chump, you go and kill yourself. The world will be rid of you. But what the problem is that we don't understand that these people are very, very megalomaniacal, and highly, evil. They basically, this is the fact of the matter. And you see, how do we know that they tomorrow will not, take away more and more of our rights? How do you know that tomorrow they will not unleash a kind of a plague? How do you know that they won't infect the whole human race and then say, hey, we're going to give you this we have the here's a kind of an AIDS type of thing that's going around, and so many people have caught this, and we're going to hand you the antidote, but you got to do what we say in order to get it. Whatever. There's so many different scenarios that could happen.
Yeah.
Or it could be a third world war in which they're going crazy. Countries, Iraq, it's not just a question of oil that is needed. Water is a big problem.
That's going to be the big thing now, is water.
Right, the water. So and then we've got predictions about America running out of its oil, and the whole changeover of these kind of fossil fuels. You see, so we're living in a time where there's a feeling of great insecurity upstairs in the corridors of power for whatever reason. But this was predicted years ago. Even in the movie, 3 Days of the Condor, my mind goes to think of that movie, in which the whole theme of that movie is about planning a war, going through a war game, in order to get ready for the real war that might be happening. A CIA within the CIA, you see? So we've already been told, we've already been shown. But it's just like the normal insecurity that a person has when there's a job loss, or when how are we going to pay our rent, or where's the next food going to come from? You see, individuals have this trauma on their individual private life, where there's a major upset or a trauma or a death or a robbery. Well, you're not acting in the same way. You're totally in panic. You don't even sleep. Everybody is infected by the panic. Well, you imagine that insecurity multiplied many, many, many times up on the government level there. Anything's justified to them. Murdering and slaughtering the whole, the whole world is perfectly justifiable now.
Yeah.
Because individuals are living out of connection with the natural order. Nature will provide everything. There's geniuses in our midst that can use free energy devices. I laugh at these people who are trying to, joke about. They're not joking. They're serious about, the ending of fossil fuels, and they're nearly pulling their hair out over that. What are you talking about? Henry T. Moray, Nikola Tesla? These guys were able to run entire office blocks on a box that wasn't even plugged in.
Well, look at the human body. Even the human body itself, we have enough electrical current going through us that we can harness
Isn't it amazing?
that. Yeah.
You've had Walter Russell. You're going blue in the face. You've got, you've had the finest geniuses, but nobody's interested in them. That's all woo-woo stuff. Forget about that. No, we got to dig up the earth and corrupt the earth and find other ways, and we got to monopolize. Because believe me, also, I can tell you one thing: there is more oil that the American government has got hidden for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. There's no such thing as an energy shortage whatsoever, even in oil. Anyone who's done 5 minutes of real homework knows that. I've known people who worked in the top oil companies who've been taken into secret rooms and shown all the hidden silos and all the hidden oil that's kept in reserve while they show shortages in the world so that the whole world can go into panic.
Well, they want you to believe that.
That's right. It's all mind control. So even if people are into the oil thing, do some homework and find out about the black operations and the fact that they've got so much oil, so much. If they weren't polluting everywhere, you'll have even more. So, the situation is completely manufactured fear, manufactured lack, manufactured want. There's not a single country in the world that should be starving, but the World Bank sure makes sure that they starve. So, we've got injustices on our doorstep, and it's completely obvious to anyone who's done 5 minutes of homework that the whole thing is organized. And we've had people, not just people like myself, who are not scientists. We've had the scientists from the top of the totem pole telling you this, proving it.
Yeah.
Dr. Dale Scott from Berkeley, and so many other great scientists who've gone to the heart of these matters.
Yeah.
From Canada to Malaysia.
Dr. David Suzuki up here.
Who absolutely confirmed this.
Yeah.
Noam Chomsky, you name it. The list is endless of the people at the highest level of the academic totem pole, and yet still people don't get it.
And it's out there in the open for all to see.
Absolutely, out there in the open. So this is the situation in which the human needs to open their minds and really feel good about it, enjoy it.
Yeah.
The discovery of different aspects of the self, the discovery of greater phenomena, materially, the adventure of discovering new political ways in which to exist. People can go to my blog. They can go to the future, Mankind's Future page of the blog, and I've got a whole bunch of links there to permaculture and and ecology. Why not make it an adventure?
Exactly.
Why not make it a big adventure to find out how to live even in your own house? And off of better ways. There's been movies made like Affluenza and All Stressed Up. These are PBS 1 hour, 2 hour documentaries showing people, different paradigms of how to live on recycled stuff. So there's a whole study in this, and it's a wonderful study to realize that you're not exploiting the earth anymore. You're not exploiting your neighbors. Talking about independence and we're the greatest country and we're all individualistic. It's all just verbiage. It doesn't mean anything.
It's all rhetoric.
Why not do something physically to get off the grid?
Yeah.
Stop funding these monopolies that are destroying your country.
Exactly. I tell you, I hate living in a city right now. I'm used to living in BC and halfway up a mountain, and it's scary to be in a city nowadays. It's just, when the shit hits the fan, I know a cave where I'm heading to in BC, and I tell you, I miss those. I miss
cities
those
are geopathic places to begin with.
Yeah.
They're also concrete vampires. The whole idea of creating things in a block. I mean, we can get into the whole geometry of it. Cities are not healthy places to be in any sense of the word.
No, I tell you, I had a teepee for a number of years, and I lived in a teepee for almost a year. And after being in that, I found it so difficult to walk into square buildings. It just assailed my senses. It was so bizarre. I couldn't go into stores. I had to kind of acclimatize my body again to walk into buildings.
Yeah.
It was bizarre.
And yet there's a whole culture of domes out there.
Yeah.
People can get into domes, the geodesic domes, and live in those. And they're not expensive. They're far cheaper than even anything to run a normal house. Yeah. Because there's nothing economical about living in 90-degree angles and boxes and squares and cubes, which is ad infinitum. So people need to start, the discovery of self is also an involvement into subjects like feng shui, it's into subjects like astrology and geomancy. There's a whole world of learning out there that your teachers did not teach you, that you need to re-educate yourselves. People need to educate themselves into all of these different things and make it a joy, make it a discovery, not something horrible and pessimistic and fear-based.
Yeah.
The fear is basically an epiphenomena of the city. Your fear is your epiphenomena of living amongst other people who are living in their lower chakras and are lost in fear. So, stop blaming yourself. I mean, people need to stop blaming themselves. When I say you, I don't mean you personally, George. I'm saying you, the people of the world, need to get out of blame and realize there are reasons for your predicament.
Yeah.
You have imbibed the collective. You have projected your own goodness onto others who do not deserve it. It's like, take a relationship setting. One of the greatest psychologists is the late R.D. Laing from Scotland. And Laing said something fantastic. He really analyzed relationships a lot. He said, look, you enter into a relationship and you have given love and you have given trust. Because love and trust go together, and you can say which one's even more important. It's up to you, because both are extremely important, love and trust. He said, yeah, you've entered into the relationship and you're giving your wife love and trust, but you do a third thing, which you should not do. And these psychologists know that you shouldn't do it because they're picking up the pieces of the people who have done it down the line. He said, you've also done a third thing, and that is that you have expected or conditioned yourself to believe that you're receiving love and trust also. It goes with it. They all come together. If you give your love and trust, you automatically assume, and there's really no reason to do it, but you do, you assume that you're receiving those things in kind without testing for it. And he goes, that is the place of disaster. Because if the vampire is operating in your life, then they are going to make hay out of the fact that you believe you're receiving what you're not receiving. But the problem is not the vampire, the problem is your own assumption. So earlier when you said, how do you protect yourself against the vampire, is know your own motives, know your own assumption. It's actually you who's allowing them into your power.